This is Scott Spears, and on Friday, May the 16th, 2014, the most iconic female broadcaster of all time, Barbara Walters, called it a day by leaving The View in the news business and, as she says, television after an amazing career. And by the way, Friday's View was the fourth most highest rated episode of The View in the history of The View's 17 years. Joining us today is a man who spent more time sitting next to Barbara Walters during her career than anybody else. In an exclusive interview, the man who was with her on 2020 and the Today Show, and by the way, started with her on the Today Show 50 years ago this year, 1964. He's one of my favorite people, Hugh Downs. Hugh, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Good to hear from you, Scott.
Yeah, always good to hear from a fellow Ohioan. Your buddy Barbara Walters, who you spent, 1964 to 1999 virtually sitting next to, has retired. What do you make of that?
Well, it's kind of interesting that it fell out that way because you probably know all this, but excuse me. I came on the Today Show in 1962. I had been doing night stuff, and they wanted me to do Today, and so I did. And Barbara was a writer at that time on the staff. She was there before I was, and she has this in her book too, which I think is very gracious of her to mention this. But at the time they had, this is egregious when you think of it, and they would never do this today, but they had what they called a Girl of the Week. And they had, at one point they had Maureen O'Sullivan, who's she was a real star and a good actress and everything. She goes back to when she was very young, and she was the girlfriend of Tarzan, who was at the. I can't think what the name was, but she also was Mia Farrow's mother. Do you remember her?
Oh,
Maureen
yes.
O'Sullivan.
Yes.
And that's going way back. But she was the one that they were using. And when she had to leave, they were combing the roster with movie things of other movie stars. And I said, why do we go to the movie industry to get stars? Why don't we build our own? And they said, such as. I said, such as Barbara Walters. And they said, she's a writer. And I said, yeah, but she's good looking, and I think she's smart enough to handle the thing on the air. And so they grudgingly let me put her on 2 days a week, just to try it out. And as you know, it worked out very well. And she was with me on that program till I left that in '68. No, not '68. It was because I did it almost 10 years. And she did that with me, and then later on 2020, that was a decade, and virtually on 2020, she was with me 16 of the 21 years that I did the program, because I had her come on to do features for a while, and then she was on regularly for 16 of those years, and actually stayed with it after I left. And became a co-anchor after Frank McGee, I think it was, that didn't want to let her do anything. It would be like he was not very kind to her. That was not nice. And after a while, she became a co-anchor with, I can't think of the guy's name now.
Jim Hartz, I believe it was.
What's that?
Was it Jim Hartz?
Yeah, it was Jim Hart. You're right. That was it. So she did that for quite a while, and I think she got a bad treatment when Harry Reasoner piled on the. She was the first woman on television to make $1 million, and that seemed to dislocate the bones of a lot of insecure males. They didn't like that idea. Now, I thought it was wonderful because that put her in a kind of a star position, not just the money, but the publicity about being the first woman that did that. So anyway, we were a lot of time on the air together, and that was a great joy for me.
Barbara has said this. I've heard her say this in interviews, and she did say it in the book. She said she had aspirations to go on the air, and they didn't want her at NBC in '64. They wanted her to stay off the air, and you're the one who said, put her on. Knowing now, 50 years later, that you started the career, essentially, of the most famous female broadcaster in the history of broadcasting, how does that make you feel?
Well, I'm kind of proud of being that good of a prognosticator, because I'm pleased that it turned out that way, because I knew from her intelligence and from what she, all of the aspects that she had and would have needed, obviously, to be that kind of a television star. And I'm kind of proud of the fact that I was right.
Do you think she would have made it if you hadn't said put her on?
Yes, I suspect it. I don't know how long the delay would have been, but I think she would eventually have gotten on the air, and it would have gone on, to somewhat the same splendor that she has enjoyed through a magnificent career.
You know, it's no secret, that when you left, Frank McGee came on, and he was not kind to her. And
no, he wasn't. I don't know what his problem was.
No, it was a whole thing. I guess went up to the president of NBC News. It was a big deal. And also, Harry Reasoner did not like her.
No, Harry, I can understand it. He should have been more decent to her, but he got a bum deal also, because he read in Variety that he was ready to do the news, and then in Variety it said that he was not going to be doing it by himself. I thought that wasn't really a very good start to a relationship with Barbara on the air, and it showed, obviously, because he was not a happy man.
That being said, from those two men, you were the first in '64 to sit with her. Why were you more enlightened than maybe Harry and Frank McGee were, who came after you with her?
I don't know. Maybe I saw things that all they saw was maybe their own. I hate to say this, but maybe their own security was threatened in some way. Mine wasn't. I really enjoyed the time that I was able to spend with her, and she was living up to what I really believed was going to happen, and turned it into a more magnificent career even than I would have guessed.
You're the only person who can answer this, and this is why I wanted to talk to you on this occasion. You were there when Barbara went on the air in 1964. You were virtually with her until 1999 when you left 2020. How did the not as rich writer Barbara Walters change to the most iconic female journalist of all time in 1999? How did she change as a person?
Well, maybe she didn't change as a person, but I think it was part of an evolution that may have been inevitable, because she had what it took, and having it put together properly would have resulted in very easily in the kind of career that she managed to build. And so I just think it was something that was going to happen anyway. And incidentally, she was 62 when I came on, and I think it was before the end of '62 that I was allowed to put her on the air.
Oh, it happened quicker than that.
Yeah, that's right. And then she was on with great regularity after. You mentioned '64, but I always think of '62 as the date of the beginning of that march.
What do you think it was about her? Yes, she was smart, but she had this ability to get the get. Monica Lewinsky and her, highest-rated news interview special ever.
This was her tremendous devotion to journalism. She would go after a journalistic story. She would leave a vacation to go for a story that was important so she was really a dedicated journalist, I think. And I have to credit her with that, because my own feeling was I loved the stuff I did, particularly the field work that I did in television. But that's the way I made my living, and that wasn't what my life was about, you know. But with her dedication to journalism in general was pretty powerful. And I have to credit her with that. And I think this would have happened anyway, even if I wasn't in the picture.
That being said, why is she leaving?
Why is what?
Why is she retiring?
Oh, well, this is very interesting, I think, psychologically. I really think she's sincere. I don't think she's making that up. She wants to do that. Because, first of all, she's been extremely busy and very put upon it. Maybe things that she wanted to do that she couldn't because she always, always got kind of whisked away by some journalistic event that her devotion to journalism kept her away from. So I don't doubt her sincerity, but I think this happens with a lot of people. Deep down, she maybe didn't realize that she was going to feel like a fish out of water if she suddenly quit. And so she may be quite sincere in saying she's going to quit. And on the other hand, it could result in what Frank Sinatra did with about 6 farewell concerts that he gave. And I think he was sincere, but he couldn't stay away, and he just kept coming back. And that may happen with her. And I don't think it's because she's insincere about what she says she wants to do, but I think it's possible she will gradually have to repeat until she doesn't really retire.
You know, it's very interesting. She has kind of made this out. I saw her in an interview in which she almost said she wanted to do a Johnny Carson and never be seen again. I tend to lean toward more what you're saying. I think if the president calls up and says, I want you to interview me, Barbara, I think she might be there.
I think so. That would be a hard thing to pass up. And I think it's quite possible that she would do it, and maybe quite proper also, because that kind of thing could happen. That's within the sphere of possibility. And I think she would be doing the right thing if she momentarily suspended her desire to leave in order to do that. That would remain to be seen if it happens.
In this last year, when she had announced it and kind of did her farewell tour, did you have a chance to talk to her at any point?
No, I didn't, as a matter of fact. I was overtaken by events. I couldn't really do what I wanted to. Once or twice I sent her a message. I remember we were in touch once. She wanted to remember the date of something we did in Portugal, I think it was. And so she called. But we really didn't have very close connections for a long time. I viewed her with great interest, and that was about where it stood. So I've been a spectator on in the stands watching that parade.
You know, I have to ask this of you, and maybe this is just me, but you did start the career. She acknowledges that in the book, and all the surprises that went on this last week, you're still well, you're still healthy. Were you asked to be a part of her farewell celebration? Because it really seemed like something was missing there.
Yeah, well, yeah, it does seem that way. I'm not offended that I wasn't asked. I think I was enough out of it in my own evolution of what I was doing that it may be that people didn't stop to think, because I wasn't in there in any way in that limelight, where if I'd been doing a lot of things and been, keeping a glorious career of some kind going, I might have been offended if I wasn't asked to do something on that farewell thing. But I can understand how that would be. I think her people probably didn't think of it, to tell you the truth.
I have,
and that's all right.
Well, I don't usually give my opinion on the show, but I think that was an egregious mistake. I just, you were there the first day, you were there with her on Today, you were there with her on 2020. I couldn't believe that you weren't a part of the farewell. That was shocking to me.
I think it was, and it may be due to a lot of young people who just weren't thinking, you know, about. They just weren't thinking historically, and that I think that's what did that. And so I don't think it's her fault. I think it really is people around her were busy trying to create a structure that would be meaningful to the audience, and that's just where it stood. So I'm not offended by it.
I certainly understand that. You sat next to her for, almost 10 years on today, and then a lot of years on 2020. What can you tell us right now about Barbara Walters that we don't know?
That you don't know? I wonder if I can say her life has been pretty open. I don't know that she... well, I don't know. I don't want. If I got into some of this stuff, it would be just bad press that she got. Where you know she has a daughter, an adopted daughter, and there's been all kinds of stories about that they don't get along and everything. I don't know if that's even true. It's all tabloid stuff, and I don't have any desire to delve in that because, first of all, I don't really have any inside knowledge on it. But I think that she has had a shadowy other life. But I think most things that she did otherwise did not get in the way of her devotion to journalism.
You're right.
And that's what made her a really good reporter and commentator.
You know, I think we talked about this once. When she went on The View, you know, she got into some really, for the first time in her career, some really nasty press with Rosie O'Donnell and Star Jones. And,
I remember that. Yeah.
Very uncomfortable stuff, I think, for her.
Yeah.
You guys look so comfortable on 2020, especially. You know, you had such a rapport. Yeah. But it's true. There are those stories that Barbara doesn't necessarily get along with her daughter. There were those blow-ups on The View. Her marriages didn't end the greatest that they could have. Is she a hard person to have candor with? Is she a hard person to conversate with off camera?
Not for me. I don't know. She might kind of close up to some people, and I wouldn't blame her. You know, who would become sort of paparazzi people who would take that and make something of it, or maybe make money on it. I don't know what. But I didn't have any desire to do that, so she was always pretty open with me. And she knew I wouldn't betray her, and I knew vice versa.
In all those years, did you ever have an argument? Was there ever a crossword? We all have those with people we work with. Was there ever a bad moment with Barbara?
No, this sounds odd, but there really wasn't, because we had differences of opinion, and we never even behaved in an annoyed way with each other. But we did, if we had I remember one time we both wanted the same vacation time. And we said, well, let's go to the head of everything here and see if we can work out something where somebody else will take over when we're both gone, you know. And she didn't think that was a good idea, and I think she was right. It wasn't a good idea. So we didn't do that. But there was never something where we even behaved in an annoyed fashion with each other, because that would have kind of ripped something that was very valuable to maybe both of us. I don't know, to just kind of keep our voices down, and not even if we had a difference.
You know, one of the only times I ever saw Barbara Walters cry was when you left in '99. Left 2020. She got a little emotional.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Well, I don't know. I might have felt the same way if I was going on with a show and she decided to leave. You know,
it's one of the
she probably knew that I wasn't phony about it. If I said I was going to leave, I really was going to leave. And I remember that now. Yeah, that did affect her, and that was moving to me.
You know, you helped start the career. Mount Rushmore of journalism. Edward R. Murrow's definitely there. Walter Cronkite's definitely there. Is Barbara Walters there?
From a standpoint of devotion to the truth about what she did journalistically, yes. I don't know. It might be stretching a point, to try to compare the depth of qualities that those people you mentioned had in the evolution of their wisdom, and I think they had a lot of wisdom. I think Barbara's position was simply her devotion to the truth in journalism, and she never did something in order to get more attention or more ratings points or anything, where she kind of shifted the color of the thing to something that would be more sensational or anything. She never did that. And as a result, sometimes there was critics about what she did. But mostly, I think people, certainly in the journalistic world, respected what she was doing.
You know, I'm enjoying this conversation. I have two summing up questions, though, I want to ask, and I think you're the perfect person to ask this. When you think about it, Barbara Walters, back in 1962, when this all got rolling, she was a woman that was revolutionary. As weird as it sounds now, it was revolutionary then. But she did have a little accent, a little different voice. She almost had everything working against her, but yet she became the most famous. What quality did she have?
Isn't that interesting?
What was it?
You're right, that is true. I don't know if I can answer that or know exactly why, except it's just a compound of qualities that were all reflecting her devotion to journalism and to truth in journalism, where she was not going to bend it to get more attention for herself. I don't think she ever went after attention for herself. She did want to get attention to stories that were important that she thought people ought to know, and she would do whatever she thought it took to do that. But I never saw her move in a direction that I thought was just how, hey, I'll get that spotlight on me a little brighter. I don't think she ever did that.
You know, we're going to remember her. I think society in general, Barbara Walters is never going to be forgotten, and I'm not sure she's done yet, as you say. I agree with you in that. But first woman journalist, highest rated news special, 2020 specials, creator of The View, this great juggernaut she created. But from the man who was there in the beginning and was there with her for so long, how are you going to remember her? When you think Barbara Walters, what do you think?
I don't know. What do I think? I think sometimes in the years that we were actually together, you got to go back to 62 to start, and it would total, let's see, 16 and 10. It would total 26 years, really, that we worked together one way or the other. You know, that would be, that's a long time, over a quarter of a century, and it was an important part of my, important part of my career and my life, and that was that's what I think of. Well, I can't think of anything else that would be worth pointing out.
Well, I am so glad that you were able to join us. Before we do part, though, anything going on with you? How's life out in Arizona? How are things?
Oh, it's great. It's great now. I had a series of difficulties a while back, a few months ago, mostly unrelated, but they got some pretty smart people in the antiviral medications department, and who know how to do something. I've got the right mix now, and that I've had it long enough to get completely out of the woods, and it's been wonderful. It's just been like getting younger again. So I'm very happy with that, and very happy with where I am now. This has got to be the greatest climax, or I would say climate, that there is, and we don't mind the heat. You don't play tennis at noon or some nonsense, and you've got an air-conditioned car, an air-conditioned house and office and everything. There's no point. I can't feel sorry for people who complain about the heat, because the old timers, 150 years ago, I don't know how they survived this kind of temperature but they did somehow. And of course, life expectancy was about 39, and that's a big difference for those who are into the good old days syndrome.
You blew right past that.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you, as I say, nobody else I wanted to talk to about this monumental event, Barbara Walters' retirement, but you. And I do want to say, I don't know who made it, and I don't think it was Barbara, but a very egregious mistake that you weren't a part of that farewell celebration. That just shouldn't have happened that way.
I should have at least been asked, maybe, if they thought, but I think the people who put it together just weren't thinking historically. They make some amusing mistakes. I heard one young person say, and I'm not a good old dazer, but this person spoke of the Charleston as a piece of music, and he was talking about, spoke of it as a swing era. It had nothing to do with the swing era. That was strictly, strictly earlier than that, and they didn't have a historical sense of what the evolution of popular music had been. And my eyes rolled when I heard that. So if you got people like that putting it together, then it seems to me they're going to make mistakes historically, like that would mean, and maybe it was silly to leave me out of it, but to them, I had just kind of faded because I wasn't in a spotlight saying, hey, look at me.
Well, you haven't faded to me, and you haven't faded to a lot of people. We miss you on television, but we're happy you're out there enjoying your life. And if it were up to me, you would be up on Mount Rushmore, because some of the work you did was so fascinating. You've been a great friend to me on this show, and boy, don't make this the last time. Keep coming back.
No, if you got other things to talk about, I'll be happy to take a whack at it.
The great Hugh Downs.
Thank you.
Thank you, you.
Yeah.